I'll see you all next time, and hopefully we'll be sitting here this time next year looking at a much better year in terms of society, personally, and statistically. Sorry to burst your bubble, Arv, but shit got real. Welcome to my 4th year in review, where I do a breakdown of my numbers on the channel this year, talk about my life on YouTube, a little bit about it personally, and of course about society in general. First up, we'll look at my stats. It should be abundantly clear that I've been less active on the channel this year. In 2021 I released 29 videos, and this year it was just 13. With 3 of them being about the Taiwan scenario. We'll get into why that might be later, but let's actually take a look at some of my stats for this year. These stats go from the 1st of January to the 27th of December, except for revenue, which goes up to the 26th. My total views were 2,342,155, a 24% decrease from 2021. My watch time was 127,566.7 hours, a 9% decrease from 2021. I gained 10,639 subscribers, a 40% decrease from 2021, and I made £2,803, a 28% decrease from 2021. The interesting thing to me is that I'm not as bothered as I should be. During my major success last year, I told myself that I had to be even better next year, and if my stats weren't better, that I would have been a total failure. And yet now I can accept where I am. In hindsight, my major success made me arrogant, and I took it for granted. The views, the subs, especially the money, and that I'd assumed I'd made it and that success was some sort of guarantee from there. But that's not life. Success is not a linear path. And my advice to people who have enjoyed that major success this year, whether it be on YouTube or in your personal life, don't take it for granted. Try and remember where you've come from, and probably most importantly, don't beat yourself up if it doesn't continue in the same vein, because it probably won't. Another thing I find interesting on reflection is that I've picked the wrong battles this year. From day one with the Vrillon video, you could see that I was failing to hit the right notes in terms of the algorithm. This was evident with the Reagan video too, which was supposed to have been the first in a series of alternate history videos, and I think that would have gone down poorly because that's not really within the remit of this channel. I think it would have struggled to gain any real traction, at least in comparison to those EAS/analog horror videos. And on the second channel too it applies, because I made Premier League and World Cup videos and I put a lot of effort into them needlessly, and it was needless because nobody really watches them, and I was essentially wasting my time out of pride producing videos that I thought were very high quality and would have put on my first channel if people would have been interested in them. But ultimately that time would have been better spent working on videos for the main channel that people actually would have watched. Personally, this year hasn't always been good, and in fact it's rarely been great, but this was the year that I think, in hindsight, I needed. If I'd have continued to blow up, like I did in the end of 2021, I'd have ended up with a deluded sense of self-importance, and it would have backfired for me one day. Summer in particular, I think, was quite hard, because I was able to be introspective for the first time, and I was able to reflect on my time in college, and the fact that I'd felt I'd done poorly in college, and that at the time I was living a meaningless routine life, while I felt that my friends were living more fulfilling lifestyles, and that it affected me. I felt useless and lazy, and I was just living the same boring life and just wasting away. I would wake up at 1 PM, barely do anything, watch YouTube videos, spend my money on unhealthy food, and go to bed at 5 o'clock in the morning, and that's an obviously shitty lifestyle. And in fact, I remember one time being on a high street, crossing the road, and it's something that annoyed me. I can't remember what it was. But I just had this overwhelming desire to cry, and it sounds ridiculous, and as cheesy as it sounds, it was then that I decided to try and fix myself. And come August, I began to apply myself more. I was doing the majority of the housework, and that was how I felt fulfilled. I was at least doing something, even if I'd had a shitty day. I could tell myself that I'd at least washed the dishes or done the laundry. And as simple as that is, I needed that because I'd always been a quite painfully ill-disciplined person who could maybe have that one day of doing a lot, but the next 2 or 3 days I'd barely do anything after that. By mid-August, I got my A-level results back, and despite my worries, I did fairly well. I got an A in film studies, a B in media studies, and a B in English language, which shows that if I were to apply myself consistently, which I didn't do over the 2 years in college, I might actually be able to achieve something pretty good. Of course, the biggest change in my life is that I'm in university now. I'm studying filmmaking, and I'm enjoying the independence and responsibility of living away from my family. Unlike y'all Americans, though, I'm not in a dorm. I get my own bedroom in an apartment. Lucky me, I know. And it's already going better than college was, although by no means perfect. And although at first I did struggle with socialization, and I felt really shitty, and to be honest, I felt like I didn't belong here, in that I was walking around my flat, in my bedroom, and I didn't, perhaps because I'd been obviously living with my parents for so long, it just didn't feel real. But eventually I settled, I made some friends, and things feel a lot better. My channel did suffer this year, and the reason for that is partly down to laziness. When I said in last year's review that my time in college was full of absences and me being late, that didn't stop. I went to bed too late, turned up to classes late, and there were times where I'd be late, I'd get the bus into the town where the college was, and just think to myself, I can't go in, and I'd just simply get back on the bus and go home. And that was partly because of embarrassment, because I kept turning up to classes late, and I didn't want to do it again and make a fool of myself, but also because of laziness. I just didn't want to do the work. I wanted to do what I wanted to do, which was usually either playing video games or watching YouTube. The ending of the Taiwan video was poor and rushed because I'd spent so long on it that I just wanted to get it over with. I was reckless with money as well. You all saw how much money I made last year and this year, and if I'd saved it properly, I could have paid for my flat's rent for this entire year without resorting to yet more student debt. And I was the classic poor kid who got a lot of money. I didn't know how to stop spending, and I didn't try hard enough to stop myself. The few times that I did try didn't last very long. I remember the days of looking at something being £2 and thinking, Christ, that's expensive. And I was notorious in my family for being a penny pincher, yet when I got 4 figures in my bank account at the age of 18, all because of myself, that changed. And luckily, university has taught me a lesson about that, because I'm the poorest I've been for about a year, and that of course requires sound financial logic when you are paying for everything yourself. I could ramble on about my personal life for hours, but I want to sum it up simply by saying that my channel has suffered this year. It's done poorly by last year's standards, but that's ultimately fine because my success last year papered over the cracks personally, and I needed a bit of a reality check and a chance to just reflect and improve myself, and I think I'm on the road to doing that. Societally, 2022 has been a majorly grim year. The COVID restrictions we dealt with for the best part of 2 years were gone, but the Russian invasion of Ukraine has ruined and ended many lives, and it unfortunately has caused a global struggle with energy and resources. Inflation has skyrocketed, as have energy bills, and this means that living standards pretty much globally have plummeted. Christmas and the New Year are usually times that people celebrate the year that has gone by and look forward to the future with a bit of optimism, but there's no doubt that for most people they will be cynical about 2023, and you can't really blame them because there's not really much cause for optimism. But as shitty as it seems, we do have to keep going and remember that things will improve eventually. COVID was a difficult time. We were locked away for months on end, and we didn't really know when society would return to some sort of normality. But we soldiered on, and we have to do it again. It won't be by any means easy, and unfortunately people will die and people will struggle. But we have to be resilient, and we have to remember that there is some light at the end of the tunnel. Personally, I want to keep improving, ensuring that I have self-discipline, because if not, I'll simply slip back into old habits and become lazy again. I of course want my first year of university to go well, to have good social experiences, to learn, because that's what I'm paying a premium for that. I want to feel more socially involved, For a good 9 months of this year, I felt isolated. I only really spoke to people online or my family. I didn't really speak to many friends in real life because I didn't really have many in real life. And I want to feel more connected, because that's not really a good way to live, being isolated. We're a social species, and it feels a lot terrible when you're alone. YouTube wise, I want to be more consistent. I've no doubt slacked off this year, although I have been more busy. There are some excuses, but I have to be realistic. I want success, but I must understand that there's a process there, and that trying to push myself too hard to get back to where I was in late 2021 will probably burn me out, and that'll hinder me long term. As much as I'd like to upload more videos than I did this year, next year, there probably won't be as many in 2021, because this will obviously be a busy year for me. Obviously, I'll have university assignments and projects to work on, and even when I have a long summer break, I'll have to find somewhere else to live for my second and third years. So as you can imagine, I'm going to have a lot on my plate. Overall, I would say that this year has been a year similar to 2019, where I said in a very, very incoherent way that it was a year of ups and downs. I've had some really quite crushing lows, and I felt really quite awful at times. But I think I've learnt a lot about myself and the world. But the most important thing, of course, is to use that knowledge to improve. It doesn't really mean much if you don't do that. That's the message to everyone. Applaud your improvements, recognise where you've gone wrong, and just keep soldiering on. That's all we can do, really. Our best. And with that, I leave you all and 2022 behind. Hopefully when I watch this back at the end of 2023, it's a lot looking back on the days when we were all blissfully unaware of some major global event that's yet to happen. But we shall see. Hopefully you all have an enjoyable and happy new year, and I'll see you soon. Goodbye.
Of course, as well, there's the World Cup in Qatar next year, so you can bet your arse that I'll be getting insanely drunk when England win the World Cup. It's absolutely happening. I don't want to hear anything different. It's coming home.